Hey everyone, happy Friday. I am really excited because today I have with me Kevin Smith, the insurance guru of the North Shore. So, welcome, Kevin.
Hey Betsy, how are you?
I am good and I'm happy to have you. And I love your tagline where you say, have you read your insurance policy front to back? Don't bother. That's what I'm for. So, I'm glad you're here. So tell us about the kinds of insurance that you handle. There's lots of kinds of insurance. So
There are. I'm a general agent, means I do a little bit of everything. However, I focus on property and casualty.
okay.
And, what that means is I protect your stuff as well as the harm that you might bring to others. And that's the casualty side of that property casualty.
Okay. And I as a consumer, I never know like what's the right amount. Like you just hire somebody and you trust them, I guess. So how do you determine how much people should have?
So there's a lot to that question, but I think you would want to examine what you have yourself. What do you have that needs protection? That would be my starting point. Are you a high worth individual? Do you high risk? Do you have people at your house a lot? Stuff like that. That's primarily, the starting point.
Okay. So, are there key things that people should look for when they're shopping for insurance?
Yes. The first thing that I think we want to recognize is that all the insurance companies here on the North Shore, in the Chicagoland area, in Illinois, are pretty much big companies. And these companies are financially stable. And more than that, they have to adhere to the state regulations. So the policies that they're going to be providing are very similar. And the state does that so that guys like me and or yourself will shop and find a policy that's suitable and you won't be in trouble.
Okay.
So that's kind of the first thing that you have to kind of look at. And then go ahead, Betsy.
Well, I was just thinking, does every state have the same regulations or do different states maybe have different regulations?
They do have a little different, and that is why insurance is governed by each state, Department of Insurance, state of Illinois. But you're right. Florida might have a whole other different bunch of stuff that has to be recognized.
Yeah, or not.
Right,
So,
right, exactly.
Okay, all right. And how often? So let's say we have a policy. I think a lot of times people they get a policy and then they forget about it. So I think how often should people review their policies, or do you call people and say let's review? Or
I do. I'm a hands-on guy. I take care of my folks, and I talk to them often. But more so, I try to get to them on an annual basis when the renewal comes, because life changes and sometimes their needs will change. There's two different kinds of things that you have to look at when you're looking at a policy is, does your life change with the amount of cars you have? Are your kids getting to that age where they might have to have an insurance policy? They might be added to the policy as a driver.
right.
We want to recognize that before they get to be 16 and start looking for the carriers that are more lenient as far as rates go for those types of people. So we touch base and it becomes a partnership.
That's really good. And here I see talk about something like a young adult policy.
Well, yeah, well, I'm just saying young adult, meaning putting a driver on a policy
Okay.
that if you're 16 is going to create risk. And
Right.
you need to recognize that those folks aren't the best drivers and they're going to be out there in your vehicle and you're going to be exposed. So
Right.
you have to look
Right.
at the exposure.
And, are there some kinds of new things that people are starting to insure? Or is it basically the same thing, your car, your jewelry, your home? I'm just wondering if there's, I don't know if you get involved with cyber insurance at all or any kind of anything like that.
Yeah, most of the policies do come with those little added pieces. I guess what we're talking about here today is the personal lines, the home and auto. Businesses, that's a whole little bit different sector, but most of the policies have a little bit of those kinds of things you mentioned written into the policies. And again, the state makes all the carriers do the same thing. So
Okay.
you're not going to miss out. The differences are really going to come into the limits that we choose for your particular case, as well as some of the endorsements that you can add on to a policy. For instance, like
Okay.
flood insurance, like sewer water backup. But a new one that's starting to arrive is buried service lines.
Ooh,
So, yeah, you hear about some of these stories. If a water main breaks in the street and all of a sudden they come out and they have to tear up the front lawn, who's going to pay for it? Well,
right.
so those kinds of things are new things that are coming on the surface here with carriers.
That's really good to know because that is the kind of thing that nobody thinks about. And then
Yeah.
it happens, and you're like, well, aren't I insured for that? Another one is I know in condo or townhouse policies, if my neighbor, how does this work? If my neighbor has a leak and it comes into my house, who pays and who's liable?
So, here in the state, we are a no fault insurance. Your insurance company is going to fix everything for you, and then they're going to go after the liable party. And that whole process is done behind the scenes, and you shouldn't have to worry about that. All you have to worry about is your insurance company is going to take care of your property.
Now, having said that, would that be, I know that as a realtor that
Mhm.
we having more than, correct me if I'm wrong, is it 2 or 3 water incidents can be a no for your insurance? Is that correct? It can,
Betsy,
maybe I'm wrong.
it's carrier to carrier.
Oh,
I can't write some policies if you have one water loss. So claims are not a friend.
okay.
But
Let's talk about that a little bit.
yeah, I'm gonna back up on this point here. First off, I want to bring up a point that I don't think many people know about, and that is if you or your policy is undersure your property. Let's say your home is the replacement cost of your home is $200,000, and you want to save money, or your agent wants to sell you a cheap policy, a cheaper, less expensive policy, and only covers it for $100,000. If you have a fire, the insurance company is not going to pay out the claim. You're going to be underinsured. And if you're uninsured, the insurance company does not have an obligation to pay out the limit of the policy. So you really need to work close with your agent to make sure that your home is covered up to at least 80% of that replacement value. If it's under, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. And is there a policy that they call it's just replacement value with no number?
Um, yes, that means no matter what it costs, they will replace it. However, they have to value the property at the proper replacement cost. Now, there are separate companies, insurance companies, that do not figure out what the replacement cost of your policy is. The replacement cost of your policy is figured by third-party credited companies. There's a few of them that work in this area here, and all the insurance companies get that information from the same place. So
Yeah.
again, uniform is regulated, and they're
Right.
coming up with a value that meets today's standards.
Right, because the problem is if your house burnt down in 2019, in June of 2019, the replacement cost would be X. If your house burned down in June of 2021, the replacement cost would be Y. And we can't go month by month, depending on the market, the timber market or the siding market, and call our insurance agent and redo that. So
Correct. Normally, excuse me, sorry about that.
it's okay.
Normally, insurance companies put 4% on every year as a general rule of thumb.
Okay.
However, that doesn't always cover it. So you have to reevaluate it and make sure you're at least within 80% of that true cost.
Yeah.
Or else you're not in compliance of the policy, the contract.
And I think, what they say about insurance is everybody hates it until they need it.
Right.
It's the kind of thing like, you don't want it, you pay into it all the time, and you may be mad that you're paying all this money into it, but when you need it, you're going to be really happy that you have it. And
yeah, and to that point as well, why pay for it if it's not going to help you?
right.
At the end of the day, if you end up with a $50,000 or $60,000 bill, what good was all that money you paid the insurance?
Right. It was less, but it was useless.
Yeah.
Is sort of what I hear you saying. So you really have to be proactive. Like with everything in the world today,
Right.
You've got to pay attention. You just can't, you got to be educated. You got to call Kevin. You got to talk about it. Otherwise, and you can't just do it in 1990 when you get married and forget about it. And then look at it in 10 years or
True.
30 years.
True. So that's what I kind of do. I, just work close with my folks there. I usually develop a personal relationship. So there's a friendship there, and I certainly wouldn't want anything to happen to my friends.
Yes, no, because you live in the area too, so we know where you are. So you don't want to be at Starbucks and have somebody say, "Oh, that Kevin."
Right.
So that means very trusted. So anything else? Any final words of wisdom? Things maybe.
Let's see here. I think a good point is to look at companies that, or I always get, is there any company should I stay away from? And I have to say, again, all these companies are A-rated companies that we're working with. However, what comes to play is the way they process their claim. And let's face it, that's why we're buying insurance. So if they're not efficient in the way they process their claim, then, it might not be working out real well for you.
Yeah.
So I would have to say that you want to work with your agent. You want to talk to your agent. How do they process the claim? Do you have good claim experience with this company, or do you have bad claim experience?
Okay, that's good.
And I would say that before I would go on to Google reviews and look to see what the web says about them. Because often those comments are put in there by disgruntled people. And often you don't get the positive side to that equation.
Right.
But your agent will know because he becomes part of the process.
Right. And he deals with them every day.
Right. So that would be my source.
Right. Yeah, I had to have some work done on my daughter's body work on her car. And the guy in the body shop, he knew which companies would send him, the parts more quickly, which would send used parts, which would send. It's very interesting. So it's always so good to get the information from the inside out. So the guy who works, or the guy or gal who works with them every day.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I bring up one other point?
Absolutely.
Getting close to time.
No. Absolutely.
You know what I've been seeing lately is I'm getting calls left and right. I'm sorry.
You're
You know what
popular.
I'm seeing lately is people run or companies running around knocking on doors saying your roof looks damaged,
Oh,
right? And it turns out that often this is an adjuster, a public adjuster, or a roofing company that's trying to solicit work, and they approach the homeowner with the respect that, hey, let's make an insurance claim and get your roof fixed. There might not be damage to that roof. They might be making up some cases based on a storm that happened a month ago.
right.
Be cautious. The effects of a expensive roof job will be detrimental when it comes to renewal. And you'll get sticker shock.
Absolutely. You
So
are not getting a bargain. And if you absolutely need it,
yeah,
that's one thing. But it isn't just a way to get a free roof. And then when you go to sell your house, or you're going to be paying much higher rates on your
right.
insurance.
Or you're going to get dropped. So
Yes.
be cautious there and examine all the facts.
Yes. Yes. So the goal is buy a lot of insurance. Here's my philosophy: buy a lot of insurance so you're way over insured, and then you'll never have to use it. So,
Right. That's a good philosophy.
So, well, thank you, Kevin. This has been really, really helpful. And this video will be on my website and my YouTube channel. And anybody who needs help, they'll know where to reach Kevin. And thank you, thank you, thank you. And another gorgeous Friday afternoon. So I hope everybody goes out and enjoys.
I'm going to try to. Thank you
Good,
very much.
good,
I really do
good.
appreciate it.
Thank you. This was fun.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You too.